Welcome to Career Shots from Beyond Your School. My name is Tarini Kapoor and I'm your host for today. What after school is one of the most critical life decisions for every high schooler and their parents. Beyond Your School is a platform that brings different stakeholders together to help students and parents navigate this complex process successfully. Our guest for today is Rohan Subramaniam. They are a student at Pratt Institute. Welcome, Rohan.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. I'm Rohan. I started off just in high school. I started off thinking that I wanted to do poli or political science or law or somewhere along the more um, academic routes. And then as soon as high school progressed, I realized that this is not what I want to do, and eventually started progressing more towards artistic mediums, and I settled on film. And now I've been studying film at Pratt Institute for the past 3 years, and also working as like a freelance filmmaker doing production sound and post-production sound within the film genre mostly. And now I'm dabbling into production design, which is the set and the look of the film. So those are like my narrowed down versions of what I want to do in the future, and just make short experimental films on the side. So that's my current status at the moment.
That's great. So, how are you
Yeah.
liking cat?
I'm enjoying it a lot. I think it's a very niche school. It's very geared towards fine art. So even when you do film or if you do fashion design, it's more geared towards fine art concepts of that. So commercial marketability or just um, an emphasis on making money is not as prevalent, which puts you more on the side of enhancing your creative skills, enhancing your personal like sociability skills. So I think it's like a good fit for me because I'm not into commercial film. I'm not into advertisement films. So eventually I figured out that this place is like allowing me to create just based on what I'm feeling, or create based on any sort of personal ideas I have, keeping consumer reaction out of my mind, which is very helpful in like your starting journey as a filmmaker. And overall the community is just so good. It's a lot of people supporting each other, and just like I can count on people to help me out, and they can count on me to help them out. So it's moral support, physical support, emotional support all mixed together. So it's a fun environment to be around.
That's great. So, did you always know what you wanted to do, or does Pratt let you switch courses and majors?
So before I went to Pratt, I was pretty set on doing film for the rest of my life. So I knew what I was getting into, and I stuck with it. But over during Pratt, I realized that I'm also interested in fashion and design construction. So I started picking up classes that were more just like learning how to sew, learning how to make garments, learning how to design garments, how to sell garments. And eventually I realized that I can mix the two genres together and start working production design. And production design it includes set design, it includes costume design, and it includes like any kind of props you see in the film, any kind of backgrounds you see, any sets that are made. So it's like a vast field, which is more on the creative side of filmmaking. So as soon as I started learning how to sew and started making my own like clothes, I realized, oh, I could actually make a lot of money just like making clothes for films. And so now I've started small. I've just started helping my friends by either altering something that they already own, or just like putting together a small garment for their film. So building my portfolio little by little. And I also like narrowed down my field of view in film to strictly like experimental narratives and just like learning how to be a sound person in film. So it's while I knew what I wanted to do at Pratt and I went into that like pretty strong-headedly, it narrowed my field of vision and allowed me to actually excel in the specifics of film. So yeah, but I do know for a fact that switching courses is probably the most normal, common thing you will find at schools here. So even like friends of mine have switched like almost they've switched pretty consistently. Like they switch from one major to another just because something at another point of time makes it more interesting for them. And since also art is very multimedia, it's not very restricted to, oh, if you're a painter, you always have to be a painter. You could draw at one point in time. So it allows you to be flexible. And Pratt especially allows you to be flexible in switching courses between one major to another. And yeah, that's about it.
I think it's really great that that is so flexible and it lets you explore the courses you really want to, see. So I think that's great.
100%. I think that's one thing that lacks in like um high school education, that I mean globally, but also like I experience Indian high school education. So over there, just like the lack of flexibility in what you can take is kind of it's just disheartening. You know, like you once you've taken one stream, or you know, when we had, I don't know if we still have streams because I heard that was
We
not a
do.
thing. Okay. But if I go into humanities, I just have to stick with it for the rest of the 2 years of, you know, high school, which is, you know, not productive because people's interests change, people's thoughts on what they want to do change, and then there's parental pressure, societal pressure to do something specific. So it's a lot of things to keep in mind, and I appreciate that in higher education settings you're not judged for changing courses as much as you are in high school. Yeah.
I agree. But is that the reason I decided to go abroad? The flexibility to, go to different course and then switch back?
I mean that's probably one of them. I think the biggest reason was there wasn't a film school that I could go into right right after high school that was within the subcontinent. Like I think the only film schools you can go to are grad schools or post grad schools. So you'd have to do 3 years of something else, and then you can, you know, pursue filmmaking. So I was like, I wanted to jump the gun and just start off early. And right after high school, I was like, all right, the only places that offer these courses are primarily in the U.S., some are in Canada. But I was just, my sister was also in New York at the time, and I was like, it just makes sense for me to apply here. You know, stay close to my sister, but also New York is crazy. So both those factors also came into play. But yeah, the sheer lack of art school within
Mhm.
India was like the main reason. And then lots of ancillary factors such as Sister, New York, and then Pratt being a complete art school. There is no like academia that is specifically being taught here. So it just immediately puts you into an artist mindset. Yeah, all those factors came together.
I agree. But the decision process of deciding which college to go to has three factors: the course, the university, and the country. So, according to you, which factor came first, and how did you decide that?
I think course came first. Because like I think while I was going through the applications of different colleges, they I would like often send out emails and ask what the specifics of my timeline would look like in that college. So like understand what I'll be doing freshman year, how I will progress sophomore, junior year, what my senior thesis projects were going to look like. And keeping all of that in mind, I settled down at Pratt just because they had a more holistic approach to filmmaking, which wasn't just, oh, you have to excel at writing first before you could like get hands-on experience on set. Pratt was more along the lines of film's just an art. It's not something crazy. Anybody can do it, and the process of learning is by doing. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Right, I mean, I was looking forward to doing that in college, so that made Pratt my first choice of application. And then I think country is a very overlooked factor for specific things, like if you're going to the Silicon Valley for like something in STEM, it's automatically going to put you through put you at a higher, success rate, just because your environment pushes you to do better in that position. So like New York and filmmaking made sense. I think it makes sense for people who are in academia to not be as worried about location, but at the same time, like somewhere in DC makes sense, somewhere in New York, upstate New York makes sense. Like environment is a big factor that is often like just subliminally like understood, but not as like focused upon. But yeah, course first, I think country is one of them. And the college itself, like it's important to choose a place that you feel is going to be productive for you, don't and I think the worst thing to do is chase after a name, because I was trying to do that. I was trying to chase after NYU, and then I went through that program and I was like, this is the worst sort of program I've seen for film, and I will not enjoy this. And I stopped chasing after the name, and now I'm just like so much happier in what I'm doing. But it's also too important to look at the name. But I mean, like NYU does have like a clout to it. Like it's great to go there. You'll probably get better jobs afterwards. But again, it's like, do you want to, like for me, it would have been suffering for 4 years in order to have like a slightly higher margin of success, rather than being really happy and successful for 4 years and then just having a similar margin of success. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think courses first and then college and then country, but college and country are very interchangeable for me. They're as important, you know.
Makes sense. Which grade were you in when you started this process of applying abroad?
um i think I think it was 12th grade. I think it was senior year of high school. I think I was pretty behind on applications. I was also, because I'm gonna be honest, like my school's like advisor wasn't the best. So I sort of had to figure like this stuff out on my own, and my sister helped like tremendously. But it wasn't like a, doctored process where everybody was like, yeah, you have to do this, you have to do that. I was like, I don't understand that. I'm just gonna figure it out. And it worked out. But I think it's better to start earlier than later, especially if you know you want to go abroad. So starting 11th grade makes sense. I think most schools require some sort of testing. So like SATs, TOEFL, you probably have to keep all of that in mind before you start applications. So it makes sense if you start 11th grade, you could take your SATs early, you could give your TOEFL test early, and then only worry about the application process, which is often much easier than people think it to be. And yeah, so I think it makes sense to start earlier, but my very incompetent self started pretty late, but I managed to submit all the applications in time, barring maybe like one school that I fully forgot to apply to. But yeah, I wasn't early decision. I wasn't even in the first round of applications because I just didn't have time to apply. I think I was pretty late, but it still worked out. So yeah, start early if you can. If not, don't worry. There are multiple rounds of stuff you can go through.
I completely agree. But it's so great that even if you were late, you're at Pratt and you're so happy now. So everything works out in the end. So that's good.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, can you also share some of the challenges that you faced during the admission process or after reaching that campus?
Um, yeah. So during the process, I think first thing is just knowing how to sell yourself. Which sucks to say, like like education should not be something you should sell yourself for, but it's sadly true that in order to get into a school that you really like, you have to make yourself known as a really good contender for a student. So you have to be really smart about how you write your essays, how you write your personal statements, how you submit your work, and give them just some idea of who you are and how you're an asset to their school, which is again something you should not think about while applying to higher education, but it's sadly true. So just, keeping your voice true, trying to set yourself apart from others, trying to make it known how much you're passionate about the field you're trying to apply it to. All those are super important challenges that you learn by trial and error most of the time. If you don't have like a dedicated counselor like proofreading and editing your essays, then it's a lot of trial and error learning that process. And it's also like you have to have like a full schedule to keep in mind, because it's not just applications you're worrying about, it's the testing and then applications and then fees payment, because every application also has like a fees that you have to pay for it, and then acceptance of applications, or if you have like an interview second call. It's like a lot of stuff to keep in mind that you will generally forget, especially if you're doing high school at the same time. It's a really hard thing to keep track of. So just, being very thorough and coordinated with yourself is a good idea. And I think those were like my two challenges, were just like trying to figure that out. I think art school also has an addition of a portfolio that you have to submit. So getting my portfolio together, trying to get my films all edited, all my photos, you know, make trying to make them make sense was a big part of it, because again, portfolio is a representation of what you are as a person, who you are as a filmmaker. So keeping all those things in mind, it was just like a lot of trial and error and figuring things out. So it's gonna be hard, but it's gonna be a rewarding process, because you're gonna learn about yourself, you're gonna learn how to market yourself. um, After coming to campus, I think it's crazy how much of a cultural barrier there is, or not even barrier. It's like a transition that you have to adhere to or just understand and adapt to. Because like for me, like sometimes people would find it hard to understand my accent, so I would have to say things a little more differently or a little more Americanized way, which kind of sucks, and my accent doesn't sound very uh it's like a weird mix of Indian and American now, which I don't like. But they're like, you just have to adapt and learn how to not be pissed off by that stuff. And then people, it's like, I think the first challenge I had was like, where do I get a SIM card? It's very logistical, practical things that you would just have as a kid in your hometown, just because your parents provided to you. Now you're in a whole different place where you have to start from scratch and figure things out. Figuring transportation is like a whole process. Like me learning the subway system is like super, it's hard to learn the subway system here. It's really complicated. So that was a whole process. And then getting a SIM card, trying to get a bank account, trying to get a place to live, trying to get how do I like find um like how do I get the right kinds of foods for me, because I also was vegan for a long time. So I was like, oh, I see meat everywhere, but I want to eat only plant-based. So it was like a hard process to figure that out. So there's a lot of like practical, real world like challenges that you face that you wouldn't necessarily face if you were still in Delhi, for in my case. So yeah, it's a lot of growing up you have to do like immediately, which is fun, but it's also stressful. So you got to be like mentally prepped for that, because you're gonna face it a lot. And like I've been moving apartments now, like I'm apartment hunting right now, and that's just a whole annoying process. So like, you wouldn't expect yourself to be apartment hunting or signing a lease and living in one place for longer than a year. But I've done that now, and it feels surreal that I have. So yeah, all those challenges mixed with just like sometimes understanding the cultural differences between like me and like some white person somewhere. Like they've lived a completely different life, which is often more sheltered and more privileged than our lives. And our lives are more, we're more practical and we're more like just real world conscious about things. And I think that's one thing I had to keep in mind while interacting with people. And what else can I say? Overall, it's just a lot of adaptation and being flexible and sociable, because it's also isolating to just land in a completely different country without knowing anybody and then having to start making friends from scratch because you don't know anybody. Like in my case, I've literally not seen anybody from high school since in like forever, and nobody from high school or high school adjacent people are in New York right now. So I started with no friends here, and it was just a process of like meeting new people and trying to make friends and doing the whole dance of, oh, I like the same things you like, let's hang out sometime. So you just have to like mentally prep yourself for all of that. And I still like I would prefer having more people that were brown, or more people that were Indian that were in my friend circle. But just because of how circumstances played out, I'm not close to a lot of like brown people, because like they're not here, like they're not around me as much. So it's like, yeah, I'm just like adhering to a different cultural setting, which is sometimes it's like disillusioning. It's like how, I don't know how I feel about it sometimes, but other times I'm like, okay, this is a process I've successfully completed. Like I don't have to worry about finding new friends again or starting life fresh again. So yeah, just keeping all of that in mind. Sorry, that was a long ass answer.
Oh, that's really great, though. Those were lots of useful insights. And I think it's the really tiny, tiny things I don't pay attention to here that actually give you a problem when you reach there. And for the record, I love your accent, so no worries there.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sure this will be very helpful for all the viewers. And thank you so much for being here today and helping everybody going through the process. And thank you everyone for watching this. And for more such insights, please visit www.beyondyourschool.com. Thank you.
Thank you.